Do people ask you to repeat yourself even when you thought you spoke fast enough? Has someone ever said, "Sorry, what did you say?" and you felt that little wave of embarrassment wash over you? If that sounds familiar, stay right here because today we are going to fix that exact problem.
And honestly, this is one of the most common struggles we hear from English learners everywhere. You practice, you study, you push yourself to speak faster, and somehow it still does not come out the way you want. Today, Eva and I are going to break down exactly why that happens and what to do instead.
Welcome back to English Chats Daily, the podcast where real conversations help you build real confidence. I'm Eva, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in language coaching, George. Before we get into today's topic, if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button right now, because every week we bring you practical English lessons that actually work in real life.
That's right, and today's topic is one I personally love because it flips everything most people believe about speaking English well. Here's the big question we want you to sit with for a moment. What if the reason people don't understand you is not because you speak too slowly, but because you're actually trying to speak too fast?
I know that sounds a little strange at first, right? But think about it this way. When you rush through your words because you're nervous or because you want to sound more fluent, what actually happens to your sentences? They kind of collapse into each other, and suddenly nothing is clear anymore.
Exactly. And here's what I find really interesting about this. Most learners come to us thinking, if I just speak faster, I will sound more like a native speaker. But speed is not the secret. The real secret is something completely different, and we're going to unpack all of it today.
But before we jump in, I want to ask you something directly. When you speak English, do you feel rushed? Do you feel this pressure in your chest, like you have to get all the words out quickly before someone gets bored, or before you make a mistake? Take a second and honestly think about that.
Because that feeling, that internal pressure, is actually the root of the problem. It's not a skill problem at the beginning, it's a psychological one. And once you understand that, everything about how you approach speaking English starts to shift.
Okay, so let's start with the biggest mistake, the hidden one that almost nobody talks about. Most English learners speak word by word. They think of a word, say it, then think of the next word, say it, and it creates this choppy, disconnected rhythm that's really hard to follow.
Yes, and the irony is that learners try to fix this by speeding up. They just create choppy speech that is delivered faster. So now it's difficult to understand and fast. That's the worst combination possible, right?
Completely. And native speakers don't actually speak as fast as people think. What makes them sound fast is their rhythm. They group words together naturally, they stress the right words, and they pause in the right places. That combination creates the illusion of speed.
Wait, think about this for a moment. When you watch a native English speaker talk, you probably think, wow, they speak so fast, I could never do that. But if you actually recorded them and measured the speed, it's often not dramatically faster than what you already do. The difference is in the flow, not the pace.
That's such an important point, George. And this is actually backed up by something language coaches call chunking. Instead of processing one word at a time, fluent speakers process and deliver words in groups, what we call chunks, and those chunks make everything sound connected and natural.
So, let us get into the practical system today. Eva and I have put together what we call the 5-step clear and fast speaking system. And I want to be honest with you right now. This is not about tricks or shortcuts. This is about building a real foundation, and it takes consistent daily practice.
Step 1 is something that might feel counterintuitive. You need to slow down first before you can speed up later. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Eva, I came here to learn how to speak faster, not slower, but hear me out on this one.
When you slow down intentionally, you give your brain the space to form complete thoughts before you speak them. You stop rushing, you stop cutting words short, and you actually start to sound clearer. And here's the thing, When you sound clearer, you sound more confident. And confidence is what actually sounds like fluency.
Think about a musician learning a new song. They don't start at full speed. They start slow, they make sure every note is correct, and then gradually the speed comes naturally. Speaking English works the exact same way. Slow practice builds the muscle memory that allows natural speed later.
And a lot of learners skip this step because it feels uncomfortable. It feels like you're going backward, but you're not. You're building the foundation that everything else rests on. So for this week, your challenge is simple. When you practice speaking, do it at 70% of your normal speed and focus only on being clear.
Step 2 is chunk speaking. Now, this one changes everything once you understand it. Instead of speaking word by word, you want to speak in small groups of related words. Let me give you an example right now.
Yes, go for it, Eva.
Okay, so imagine you want to say this sentence. I want to discuss about the project status today. Now, most learners say it like this. I want to discuss about the project status today. Every single word gets equal weight and equal space, and it sounds robotic and hard to follow.
But a fluent speaker would chunk it differently. They would say something like, I want to discuss the project status today. You notice how those 3 chunks just flow naturally. There's a small pause between each chunk, and the whole sentence suddenly sounds connected and confident.
And did you catch what else changed in that example? The word want to became wanna. That's called connected speech, and it's a huge part of why native speakers sound the way they do. They connect certain words together naturally, and it speeds up the overall flow without making anything unclear.
So connected speech is not lazy speech, it's natural speech. When you say going to in casual conversation, it often becomes gonna. Have to becomes hafta. Want to becomes wanna. These are not mistakes, these are features of natural spoken English.
And this brings us to step 3, which is learning to master your pauses. This one is so underrated, and I think it might be the most powerful step of all 5. Most learners treat silence like an enemy. They feel like if there's a pause, something has gone wrong.
But pauses are actually your best friends when you're speaking. They give the listener time to process what you just said. They give you time to think about what comes next, and they create emphasis on important words. A well-placed pause makes you sound in control, not uncertain.
Think about great speakers you admire, whether in English or in your own language. Do they rush through everything without stopping? No. They pause, they breathe, they let the words land. That deliberate pause is a sign of confidence, not a sign of weakness.
Wait, think about this. When someone is nervous, what do? They fill every moment of silence with like, you know. And those filler words are what actually slow down communication and make speech harder to follow. A clean pause, even 1 or 2 seconds, is always better than a filler word.
So, here is your practice for step 3. Find any sentence you want to say in English and practice pausing at the natural breaks, not in the middle of a word or a fixed phrase, but between your chunks. Practice feeling comfortable with that small moment of silence.
Step 4 is about stress words. And when we say stress, we do not mean emotional stress. We mean vocal stress, putting emphasis on the most important words in your sentence. This is the difference between speech that sounds flat and speech that sounds alive and engaging.
In English, not every word gets the same amount of weight when you speak. Function words like the, a, is, of, to are usually said quickly and lightly. But content words, the nouns, verbs, and adjectives that carry the meaning, those get emphasized. You hold them a little longer. You say them a little louder.
Let me do a quick example. If someone asks you, "Are you coming to the meeting tomorrow?" and you say, "Yes, I am coming to the meeting tomorrow," That sounds neutral. But if you want to emphasize that yes, you are definitely coming, you might say, yes, I am coming to the meeting tomorrow. You stressed am and coming to carry extra meaning.
And this is why English can sound so expressive and dynamic to non-native speakers. The stress pattern is doing a lot of the emotional work. When you learn to stress the right words, your speech immediately sounds more natural and more engaging, even if the actual speed has not changed at all. So, for step 4, practice reading sentences out loud and really exaggerate the stress on content words at first. You might feel silly doing it, but exaggeration in practice leads to naturalness in real life. Your brain learns the pattern and then it starts applying it automatically. And now we're at step 5, and this one is the glue that holds everything together. Daily 5-minute speaking drills. Not 30 minutes, not an hour, just 5 focused minutes every single day, because consistency beats intensity every time when it comes to language learning.
I love this step because it is so achievable. Anyone can find 5 minutes in their day. 5 minutes while you're making coffee, 5 minutes on your commute, 5 minutes before you go to sleep. The key is that these 5 minutes are focused and intentional, not just passive.
So what do you actually do in those 5 minutes? Pick one sentence or one short paragraph. First, say it slowly and clearly, focusing on your chunks. Then say it again, adding the pauses. Then say it again, adding the stress on key words. Then say it one more time at a natural pace and feel the difference.
And by the time you do that 4 or 5 times with one sentence, your mouth, your brain, and your voice are all working together. That repetition builds the automatic pattern that you need for real-time conversation. It's like a sports player doing drills before the real game.
Okay, we're at the halfway point of today's episode, so let me do a quick recap of what we've covered so far, because this is important and I want it to stick. The big insight today is that fluency is not about speed, it's about smooth, controlled flow.
And we've walked through the first 5 steps of the clear and fast speaking system. Slow down first, use chunk speaking, master your pauses, focus on stress words, and practice with 5-minute daily drills. These 5 steps work together as a system, and skipping one makes the others less effective.
Now, let us get into some real-life situations, because knowing the theory is one thing, but applying it when you're actually in a conversation is a completely different challenge. Let us talk about 3 specific situations that learners find really difficult.
The first one is speaking in meetings. Whether it's a work meeting, a class discussion, or even an online group call, this situation creates huge anxiety for many English learners. You want to say something, but by the time you feel ready, the conversation has moved on.
And what usually happens is that when you do finally speak, you rush because you feel like you have borrowed the group's attention and you need to give it back quickly. That rushing makes you unclear, which makes people ask you to repeat, which makes you more anxious. It's a frustrating cycle.
So here's what you do instead. Before you speak in a meeting, take one clear breath. Start with a short opener like, I think, or actually, or so here's my thought, and then go into your first chunk. That opener gives you half a second to organize your thoughts, and it signals to others that you're about to speak.
The second situation is answering questions, especially unexpected ones. Someone asks you something out of nowhere and your brain just goes blank. You start speaking before you have the answer ready and everything comes out tangled and rushed.
The fix here is so simple, but so powerful. Allow yourself to say, that's a great question. Let me think for a second. Or even just, so, and then a brief pause. Native speakers do this all the time. It's not weakness, it's confident processing, and listeners respect it.
The third situation is casual conversation, and this one surprises people because casual conversation seems like it should be the easiest.
But casual conversation is actually very fast and very unpredictable, and it requires you to think and speak at the same time without preparation.
And in casual conversation, people aren't just listening to your words. They're reading your energy, your rhythm, your pauses. If you sound relaxed and in control, even if your English isn't perfect, people will follow you easily and enjoy the conversation.
Okay, I want to do something fun now. George, let's do a quick mini role play. I'm going to play a nervous English learner trying to speak in a work meeting, and you play a colleague. And I want our listeners to notice the difference between how I speak the first time and how I speak the second time.
Great idea. Let's do it. Go ahead, Eva.
Okay, so first version, nervous and rushed. I think we should maybe discuss about the project status, because there are some things that need to be resolved before the deadline, which is actually coming up really soon.
Okay, I could follow that, but it was a little hard to catch everything. Let's hear version 2.
Same idea, but now with chunks, pauses, and stress. I think we should discuss the project status, because there are a few things that need to be resolved before the deadline. Notice how that version is actually slightly slower in some places, but it's so much easier to understand and it sounds more professional.
The difference is remarkable, right? Same information, same person, same language level, completely different impression. And that's the whole point of everything we've talked about today. Your goal is not to be fast. Your goal is to be clear, controlled, and smooth.
And here's the emotional truth that we want to say directly to you right now. The reason most learners rush is not laziness, it's fear. Fear of judgment, fear of silence, fear of looking like they don't know enough English. That fear pushes them to rush, and rushing creates the very problems they're afraid of.
That is so real, Eva, and I want anyone listening right now who relates to that feeling to know that this is not a reflection of your intelligence or your dedication. This is a very human psychological response to pressure, and the good news is that it is completely changeable with the right practice.
When you train your mouth and your brain to work together through those daily drills, you build what I call speaking confidence from the inside out. It is not just motivation, it is an actual physical habit. Your voice gets used to the rhythm, and over time, the fear starts to shrink.
And I want to add one more thing here. A lot of our listeners are shy English learners, and if that is you, I want you to know that this system was actually designed with you in mind. Shy speakers often have very good English. They just need a system that helps them feel in control enough to let it out.
The good news about chunk speaking and pausing is that it naturally slows down your internal panic. When you focus on delivering one chunk at a time, you're not thinking about the whole conversation at once, you're just thinking about the next small group of words. And that is so much more manageable.
Okay, let us talk about one final thought before we wrap up, and this one is about identity. A lot of learners have this idea in their head that they are a slow English speaker, or a shy English speaker, or someone who makes a lot of mistakes, and they carry that label around with them into every conversation.
But here's what I want you to consider. What if you started thinking of yourself differently? Not as someone who is trying to speak fast, not as someone who is trying to hide their accent or their mistakes, but as someone who speaks with clarity and control. That's a completely different energy.
Because the way you talk to yourself about your own speaking directly affects how you actually speak. When you believe you're a clear speaker, you make different choices. You pause more naturally, you stress the right words, you breathe, and all of that adds up to a completely different experience for the people listening to you.
So let's close with your 3-step action plan for this week. These are simple, they're doable, and they will make a real difference if you actually do them. Step 1.
Every day this week, pick one sentence and practice it using the chunk and pause method. Say it 4 times, each time a little more naturally than the last.
Step 2, in your next real English conversation, whether it's at work, with a friend, or even in a shop, try using one intentional pause before your most important point. Just one. Notice how it feels. Notice how the other person responds to it.
And step 3, catch yourself the next time you feel that internal rush, that anxious pressure to speak quickly. Take a breath, remind yourself that you're a clear speaker, and deliver your next sentence with intention rather than speed.
And here's something I want to leave you with. You're not a fast speaker chasing fluency. You're a clear speaker who is building control. That shift in identity is not just a nice thing to say. It's the actual foundation of every improvement you're going to make from this point forward.
Fast speech without clarity is just noise. But clear speech with rhythm and control, that's real fluency. And that's what we're building together here at English Chats Daily. Every single week, one conversation at a time.
If you want the full practice guide for today's 5-step system, go check our pinned comment below this video. We put together a written resource with example sentences, chunk practice exercises, and your 5-minute daily drill template. It's completely free and it's waiting for you right there.
And if today's episode gave you even one useful idea, the best thing you can do right now is subscribe to English Chats Daily. Because this is not just a channel where you learn English vocabulary and grammar rules. This is the place where you build the confidence to actually use English in real conversations, in real life, with real people.
We want you to walk into your next English conversation feeling a little more ready, a little more in control, and a little less afraid of that silence. Because the silence is not your enemy. The silence is where your confidence lives.
Go practice your chunks, embrace your pauses, stress your key words, and remember the most important thing. You are not trying to speak fast, you are learning to speak well. And speaking well is always more powerful than speaking fast.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. We will see you in the next episode of English Chats Daily, where we have another real conversation waiting just for you. Take care, keep practicing, and we will talk soon.
You got this. Speak clearly, speak confidently, and speak with intention. We believe in you. See you next time.